Hello, this is Interlocking Loops Flosstube episode number 4. Welcome to my home today. It's been a little bit more of a break than I had intended, but as many of you have had the same issues, illness has found me, so I think I'm able to talk fairly clearly today, and I'm feeling quite a bit better, so on with the show. As far as trying to contact me, if you're a knitter at all, and on Ravelry, you can find me on Ravelry as Angela C, and that's ANGELLAC. If you want to follow me on Instagram, I am on there. I pop on there from time to time, and that's Interlocking Loops. Well, let's get on with finished objects. I have a fully finished objects this time. While I was not feeling well, I didn't do a lot of stitching. The cold medicine, it seems like, throws me for a loop, and it's harder for me to count. And I wasn't sleeping well. The cold medication makes it difficult for me to sleep as well. So I'm better, and I was able to finish something. I'll show you my arrangement. My moss rabbits included. I think they're absolutely adorable. So, as you know, I like to make smalls, and I made a cute little pillow. It's a Scissortail Designs pattern called Easter Whimsies. And I purchased this a year ago, and you know, it's just adorable. I'm sorry for the glare, but there's a few other cute patterns that I think would be nice eventually to get stitched up as well. So I know most of us are stitching spring to Easter type things now, and you know, I just love it. So as far as other things I've been stitching on that aren't fully finished, but at least the cross stitch part is finished, include, if you remember that Dahlbeck designer with the last name of Dahlbeck that I had purchased several German books from, I have started a couple of different designs out of those books, and this one is a little bitty bird. I hope that's focusing well. Adorable, holding a little yellow flower on 14 count light blue Aida cloth. As well as I did start another one. She does a lot of her designs in the book actually on white. And I did this with the next one, although I'm not sure that I would do that maybe again. Hopefully you can see this. It's a little bunny holding a little spring flower. There is some back stitching in this, and I don't know exactly what colors per se that she calls for in her design book. I don't know that they're necessarily ones we can get here, but I took the books over to Hobby Lobby. I held them up to the DMC arrangement there, and I was able to pick what seemed most similar. And oh, they're just so adorable. Just between you and me, I have another shipment of a few more of her pattern books coming in the mail too, so stay tuned for that for next episode. So those have been finished. As far as other things I've been working on, the March Wordplay by Brenda Gervais. Let's see. Maybe I'm not quite as ready as I thought today. So the actual picture has everything from words like shamrocks, out like a lamb, spring, windy. We'll make into a nice pillow. And if you remember before, I mentioned I was going to use DMC or some of the flosses I had laying around, and I've done that. And what I like most about this particular project, if you remember, I have acquired my mother-in-law's cross-stitching stash of threads, a lot of DMC. I've been able to pick several colors that she's had in her collection to put a little bit of her into my cross-stitch. So it's still in the hoop. I didn't take it out. I've changed some of the colors just a little bit, made them a little bit brighter, and this is on 18 count Aida cloth and kind of an off-white, and that's coming along well. Another one I started is the Little House Needleworks Farm Fresh Cherries pattern. I know I mentioned that last time. I believe their group on Facebook is having a stitch along to this, and I'm not getting mine done in a timely manner. However, I am getting it worked on. So I debated, if you looked at my Instagram, I believe there's a picture of, I didn't know whether I wanted to go with something a little more neutral or kind of a green. And I believe this is a Picture This Plus. Let's see if I have this slipped in here. I don't see it at the moment. But it's a nice green that had some color to it, and it's coming along well. It's an 18 count as well. And if you aren't sure whether you want to try Ada or feel like, you know, the Ada of the past has been quite stiff, the Picture This Plus Ada seems to be very nice and soft. Has a lot more in common with linen than maybe what you remember from in the past. You can still find the stiffer Ada, but there is some really nice Ada cloth out there that's hand dyed. So I've been working on that as well, pretty much with the call for DMC conversion colors. And I won't have it done by the end of the month, but I think it'll be a nice one to make a little pillow for maybe something more along the lines of summer. So hopefully I'll get that finished at that point. I thought I'd break in and talk about a little bit about acquisitions that I've had since we talked last. I did purchase some threads from Classic Colorworks. I'm still slowly trying to build a bit of a collection, and some of these are some of the brand new colors. There's, I think, one of them that's not. But I've also been following, you know, the Housewives of Cross Stitch, and Priscilla and Chelsea have purchased some of these colors too, and are using those in their designs. And I do take quite a bit of inspiration from them. And I did buy Tea and Biscuits. It's kind of a taupe. I also purchased, and I was worried that these would become kind of snatched up quickly and maybe there'd be a little bit of a shortage, so I bought 2 skeins of each one. Sticks and Twigs, kind of a variegated brown. I have Trail Dust, which is a nice brown. This would be a good rabbit brown, I think, if you're stitching rabbits. And then lastly, Campfire. So these would make good flames on a campfire. So Classic Colorworks, cotton. All right, and I bought those from Down Sunshine Lane. So I know you can buy those in a variety of places too. So I did buy a new project bag from Pretty Southern, from her Etsy shop. Doesn't this just scream spring? Oh, bird nests and bird feathers and eggs and ivy. All kinds of pretty things. I think I like to collect the Bitsy Bobs and the project bags just about as much as I like collecting cross stitch. Another acquisition, I do have a subscription to the Punch Needle and Primitive Stitcher magazine, and if you think you're going to get into Punch Needle, and if you're already into cross stitch, every issue of the magazine has patterns for both things, and I find this to be quite a refreshing magazine. It's thick, sturdy paper. So this is a spring edition. Here, for example, is a cute Punch Needle rabbit. I can see myself making that one. I haven't started a new Punch Needle in a little while, but I think that's something that I would like to do. I've got a lot of things I'd like to do. Who's kidding who? Here's another nice pattern. You know, sheep. I love sheep. I guess that goes with the fact I have several in the barn too. It's not as glary today. We don't have all the snow. It has since melted, which, let's face it, I'm pretty happy with that too. We all know Vaughn has been having episodes of how she finishes things in these issues as well. And I can learn some things on finishing from her as well. So that's it as far as acquisitions. I have not done market purchases. I'm trying to kind of hold off a little bit. trying to finally make up my mind. I don't want to start everything. I want to try to stitch some of the things I purchased last year that haven't got around to stitching. Oh, it's coming. One thing I did want to ask everybody about is those who are doing Stitch Mania. How are you approaching that? I know some people are doing a new start, 19 new starts during the month of May. Some people are doing a new start every day of the month of May. What I did last year is I did a new start all in smalls again. A new start every 4 to 5 days, and then I was able to complete all but the very last one even during the month of May. And, you know, for me that says something. I do work full time, have a family and a busy farm that I'm helping with, and trying to start some of these large projects gets a little overwhelming for me, and the smalls just fit the bill. So I'm considering doing that again. I'm considering my options for some of the new market releases as things I would like to maybe start, and maybe incorporate some of the things I bought last year as starts as well. So hopefully next time that we get together, I'll start getting some things kitted up and getting my ideas a little more solidified. But for those of you that are interested in my cross-stitch journey, if you could hit subscribe and follow along on the videos. I have had people interested in hearing a little bit more about my other craft life, and so I thought I would go over that a little bit now. But in your comments for today's episode, could you let me know if you're going to do Stitch Mania and how are you planning on approaching it this year, and to kind of give me a little bit of feedback on what everybody else is doing. So that would be great. And I thought at this time we would talk a little bit about some of the other crafts and hobbies that I enjoy, as I've had some people express interest in the knitting content. And I'm an avid sock knitter, and this is a pair of socks I recently finished. It's a nice green yarn. This is a 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, fingering weight base from Must Stash Sock Yarn. You can find her if you Google her, and I've enjoyed these quite a bit. My general pattern is some kind of ribbing at the top. This one happens to be a 1x1 knit 1 purl 1 ribbing, plain, mainly knitting, leg of the sock, then the heel, flap, and gusset, and then on down the foot. I kind of let the stripes do the talking, and I don't add necessarily extra texture to this type. I do more of a star toe. It avoids a Kitchener stitch finish at the bottom, and I enjoy these quite a bit. So I knit on DPNs and 1.5 US 1.5 needle, and so that's for a little bit about the sock knitting. To me, when I first started knitting, sweaters scared me. Now socks, there's almost as many stitches in a pair of socks as there is a sweater. For me, it's a lot faster. It's something that travels really well. When cross stitch doesn't always travel well, I can tuck it in my purse, take it to work, do a little bit of knitting when I get to work a little bit early, or at lunchtime when I have a few spare minutes, and I enjoy knitting for the purposes of portability and that kind of thing. Another thing I've been working on is a little bit of crochet. Now, the yarn is Caron Cakes, something that I found either at Michael's or Hobby Lobby, and it looks like this. It's kind of color blocked, so there are different colors as it goes in and out. And this one happens to be blue. I figured this shawl would go well with, you know, any type of jeans, casual wear. And I'm knitting that, I believe, on a 5mm needle or crochet hook. And crochet, I actually started a little bit of crochet when I was much younger. Didn't do a whole lot until the last couple of years, and I've knit a few blankets and now this shawl. It's coming along well, and I think this may be a gift thing that I make for people for maybe for Christmas this year. It's coming along so well. The pattern I found, let's see, let me look here. I did write this down. How to Crochet a Granny Triangle Shawl by B. Hooked Crochet. And I found that on YouTube. She has a YouTube video on how you get started, how you do make your increases, and how you get going. She actually mentions linking to another place where there's the form of pattern, but once you've watched her video a time or two, you won't need to look up the pattern. You'll know just exactly what to do, and it goes along really well. So I encourage you, if you're thinking about doing a little something with crochet, that may be an apparel that you would like to wear, this is a good pattern. So I thought I'd talk just another minute or two about some other crafty things I've been working on that are cross-stitch adjacent. If you remember Lori from Mischievous Stitches, if you watch her Flosstube video, she's talked about doing some floss rings before, and I started to work on some as well. So yeah, I just did as kind of she is instructed, and I took cardstock, some of which is printed paper, that's a little bit thinner, a glue stick, a couple different size punches to punch the flower motif, because to me these look like flowers. And where the floss goes, you'll put it on the inside, and the floss will hang down then. They look a little bit like flowers. You can draw on it, and on at least one side out of every one of these, I have some cardstock that looks like lined paper, and that you can write down exactly what floss it is, what color it is, what company it's from when you're making a project. And I keep it all in this ring. So I'm planning on getting into a little more fancy floss as time goes on, and I could find this quite handy, I think. So that's something. The other thing I've been working on, you guys know I've talked before about a little bit of dyeing of fabric. I buy a lot of my fabric by the yard at Hobby Lobby, getting it on discount. They don't often have 18 count white. They sometimes do, but they often have 14 and 16 count white. And so I did a little bit of RIT dyeing, as well I've talked about before, and I thought I'd show you what I was able to get accomplished. So I don't have a fancy setup when I dye the fabric. I buy the liquid RIT dye from Hobby Lobby, and I have an old crock pot that I only use for dyeing, and I prep the water, put the salt in as instructed, do it just exactly as the RIT bottle says, and then I start adding just a little bit of dye at a time to try to get the color I'm wanting. You can always dye something darker, but you can't ever take that away really once you've got it dyed. So I did some yellow, and once it's done, I rinse it in the sink, and then I hang it up on, look, fancy hangers. And it hangs in the shower till it's dry. So I have done some yellow, and I've got a piece here that's 14 count and a piece that's 16 count. It's a really light yellow. It's a little bit darker than that is really showing. How can I show this better? Maybe you can see it better with the piece of trim that I also threw in at the same time that I can use for embellishing. Okay, that looks a little more likely. The trim is slightly darker, but the fabric itself isn't coming up as yellow as it is in real life. I'm not sure that's any more accurate, but I think you kind of get the idea. I also did, let's see, some yellow, or I did the yellow, and I also did some, I believe is it mauve, something like that. If you have a specific interest in knowing exactly what the colors were that I used of RIT dye, go ahead and leave that in the comments as well. And so I did a section of 14 count and a section of 16 count Ada cloth as well. And this is kind of a light bubble. It's real light pink. I wanted to be able to have a little bit more interest than just white. I don't know, that's not showing up real well. It's definitely prettier in real life and a little bit darker. I don't know if I have anything else that if we look at, if you can tell right here, this is a pink and white. That bit of pink looks very much like this fabric that's been dyed. This yellow is a little bit darker than the fabric I dyed, and this trim, this twine, is purchased in the Easter section of Hobby Lobby. So I guess when it won't show up well on camera, we'll try another way. So if you're interested in watching and hearing a little bit more about my creative journey and all the different crafts I'm in, please stay tuned and let me know on what you want to do for Stitch Mania. And I'm open to different suggestions. I think doing a new start every day might be a little overwhelming, might take a little more work as far as keeping things organized. But I definitely want to do at least one every 4 days, maybe one every 3 days. It's not out of the question to do a total of 19 for 2019. So, let me know what your plan is, and we'll talk again here soon. Bye-bye.